I want to start by thanking you for joining us for this virtual gelato tasting with the Wenatchee Valley Museum. And before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank Ice Visconti for partnering with us on this event. They have generously agreed to donate a portion of the proceeds from tonight's event to the museum. So thank you for purchasing tickets to this event and for participating at home. I also want to welcome our members joining us tonight and thank our members and community for their generous support for the museum. For those of you who are not already a member, I invite you to join us. We've got great virtual events like these, online classes and virtual tours, and new rotating exhibits, educational programs, and fun community events year-round. Here at the museum, our mission is to gather with our community, to engage and educate. And tonight we have the opportunity to meet virtually to learn about Ice Visconti's and to taste 3 of their most popular gelato flavors: Panna, sweet cream, chocolate, and lemon sorbetto. They prepare their authentic Italian-style gelato daily on location. I'm excited to introduce Kyle Martin, their culinary director of Visconti's Hospitality Group. Hi, Kyle.
How's it going?
Good, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
We're excited to have ICE join us tonight, as this month we're celebrating the 18th year of the museum's annual Martin Luther King Multicultural Fest. We're celebrating the rich, diverse culture and heritage that make up the fabric of our community through virtual events, including music, dancing, cooking, and crafts. So it feels fitting that we wrap up this month by tasting. So thank you all for joining us to taste this treat from Italy. We'd love to have you participate and share your questions as we go, so feel free to join us in the chat. Behind the scenes, we'll also have Jill Sheets from the museum sharing fun facts about gelato, so be sure to open your chat so you can participate. Kyle, let me turn it over to you. These flavors look fantastic. Where would you like us to get started?
Absolutely. Well, I'm down here at Ice, as you can see behind me. I just wanted to be in the spot. I'm going to talk a little bit about each flavor throughout. As I tell you guys all how we make gelato. I'll share pictures of our machines, and yeah, we'll do a little bit of history. But you know, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's open up that lemon sorbetto and give it a taste.
Great. I was telling Kyle before we opened that this is my favorite. This is what I would order when I go visit down there. So I was excited to see this on the lineup tonight. I feel a little bit selfish here with this giant container.
Yeah.
But I was also excited to see it. Yeah. I'm hoping that I don't eat it all and that I have a little bit left over for later.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, we'll talk a little bit about the lemon sorbetto. No dairy in this. It's all allergen free. No egg, no anything. So it's really a friendly flavor for anybody. There is sugar in it, obviously, and then our lemon flavoring. We'll kind of get into the process of making it, but the reason we're doing our tastings in this order is because this is the order that we would make these flavors in. So we always start with the allergen-free products in a day of production. We start with the allergen-free, and then we'll go to the neutral flavors. So Panna is also the base to a lot of our other flavors. From there, we will go to the chocolates and the specialty flavors with chocolates mixed in and things like that. And then we'll finish out with actually any nut flavors, because those are the high allergen ones. So that's kind of our process.
Kyle, what inspires your flavors? I feel like every time I go, there's a little different menu, which is fun. I never quite know what I'm going to expect. And sometimes they're really kind of exotic. How do you come up with your ideas?
Absolutely. We have an Italian producer called Produttori Stella. They make a line of gelato flavors that is longer than any list I've ever seen. So when we purchase, we get those directly imported from Italy. It takes them about a month to get that here. And it's some things you would never imagine being good, and some of them to me aren't that good. But but really there's a very wide variety of what it can be. There's toppings that turn into crusts. I'll take you over to the case really quick and we can look at what we have in there. So right here in the back, that one's our stracciatella. So it's actually got chocolate chunks in it. And then Grisby is this one right here. And that's got chunks of lemon sugar cookies in it. So additionally to those, we have Oreo, which is just chocolate with Oreo on top. So all kinds of really fun stuff you can do and play with. But the flavorings come from Stella.
We have a great question in chat asking us, what makes it so creamy if there's no dairy?
So that is the freezing process and the cooking process. We also have texture improvers that are in there. So so that texture improver is what makes it sort of be smooth without actually having dairy in it. And I've made the mistake when I was learning to make gelato of not weighing those to the exact gram, and that's when you get chunkiness, kind of like it's hard to explain, but you'll pull some and it'll be really chunky and it won't make a smooth scoop.
Almost like ice crystals or something that forms in there.
Yeah, actually, that's a great analogy. Is just like if you freezer burned ice cream and it got those crystals on there. That's kind of what the texture turns into. So I'm gonna actually share my screen here on my computer, and we can look at our machines that we use to produce. Uh-oh.
Got a brief glimpse at it. It almost looked more like a washing machine or something.
Yeah, it does. It looks a lot like a washing machine. And of course, there we go. Okay, so we'll go right here. So this is our gelato machine. It's disassembled because we keep it as clean as we possibly can. And what we do is we mix all the ingredients really, really well. We actually use a very large version of what you might have at your house called an immersion blender. We leave it in there for at least 3 minutes. So this room gets very, very loud at times. All the ingredients go in. They go in the top, and the top is the cook portion. It goes in there and cooks until it reaches 85 degrees Celsius, which is about 185 degrees Fahrenheit. And once it hits that temperature, it's sanitized. There's no way there's any bacteria in it. And then it drops down into the lower part. So we just turn a switch and it all dumps into there. And that's where it's churning and it's freezing. And one of the main differences between gelato and ice cream is the speed that it churns, which is actually slower with gelato than it is with ice cream, which makes it have less air inside of it. So it's actually more dense than ice cream is, even though you get that thickness with ice cream. So we don't actually use cream for most gelatos, which is a reason that a lot of people will say gelato is healthier. It all depends on what kind of health you're looking for. There's a lot of sugar in both of them.
So, I'm hearing that this is a health food, and I'm gonna
Yep.
keep that with me. Yeah, don't ruin that for me.
All right. So once it goes through this machine, it drops down all the way to -1 degrees, so very cold. And then it gets scooped out and goes into...
I was a little bit worried about what it was going to do in my own freezer. Are our freezers at home colder or warmer than you would keep them in the case there?
So they're probably actually a little colder. Another one of the main differences with gelato and ice cream is that gelato actually gets stored and served about 10 to 15 degrees warmer than ice cream normally is. So it's a lot easier on our staff's wrists, as well as that actually makes it melt in your mouth much faster, which you get a more intense flavor out of it.
So you're not going to scold me for having this stack on my desk for the last 15 minutes?
No, I actually wish I would have got mine out earlier because it's a little bit too hard for me to scoop. So back to our process, we have the picture here shown is called a blast freezer. And this one just takes it from where it started and it brings it down to negative 20 degrees. And once it's reached negative 20 degrees, then we have it in our storage cooler. And it's hard to see, but our storage cooler is -1 degrees. So that's where we store all our gelato. And this is actually in our commissary kitchen, and then it gets delivered almost every day into the Ice and Via Dolce up in Leavenworth.
How long does it take to come down to temperature in that blast freezer? I've seen those on cooking shows and I've always been jealous.
Yeah, they are amazing pieces of equipment. It takes about 25 to 30 minutes. So it turns it into a rock. Just so that we don't have any, so that way when we make our nice little twirls on the top of each pan, they'll hold their shape. They won't droop or anything like that. That's why we get the beautiful presentation in the case.
Do you use any local ingredients? I know you talked about having a supplier. Have you ever tried using some of our local farmers?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of berry flavors, and we use fresh and or frozen local berries, which is a great way to do that, because a lot of local berry producers have all their berries ready at one time, but we can't necessarily use them all right when they're ready. So we'll use some of the fresh ones in the restaurants for salads and things like that, and then we'll take the rest of them and the ones that don't necessarily look so good and all that, and we'll freeze those, and then throughout the rest of the year we will put them in our mixed berry, our raspberry, our blackberry sorbettos.
Yum, that's delicious. I've absolutely loved this lemon sorbetto. Thank you for including this one.
Yeah,
this is my personal favorite, and the one with the little lemon cookies too. I love that one too.
Yeah, that one's really good. So now that we've kind of talked through our process, everybody is welcome to try the Panna. You're obviously welcome to try any of them at any time.
So this Panna does have a little different appearance, looks a little creamier. Yep.
So Panna is called sweet cream. It is not vanilla. So that's a big difference is we start with a sweet cream flavor. All it is sugar and actually whole milk. So there's nowhere near as much milk fats in gelato as in ice cream.
Again, it's a health food.
Yeah, exactly. In comparison, for sure. Yeah, so this, like I said, is the base to probably 70% of our gelatos. Most of our additional flavorings just get added to this recipe. It has milk, powdered milk, sugar, and a couple of texture improvers in it. And that's pretty much what it is. Something to note is you don't get a shininess off of it, but when there is a shininess, then usually our sugars are imbalanced with our cream.
That's interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about where gelato originates from, especially since we're celebrating Multicultural Fest?
Absolutely. There's a bit of a mixed story there. For sure, gelato comes from the late 1600s, and the Italians believe that it was created in Italy, and then the French believe that it was first created and served in Paris. So,
I didn't realize that. There's a fight over who invented it.
Yeah, and there's obviously no way to know at this point where it was from. But yeah, between France and Italy in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, And then you start to see it come out to the other parts of the world, mostly Europe, in the 20th century.
I think you talked about the ingredients as well, but this is sweetened as well on top of the fresh ingredients that go in to give it its flavor.
Yeah, so this one is whole milk and sugar are the only real flavored components in it. So that's why it's just called Panna, or sweet cream. And if we want to, I think there was a question. Our best-selling flavor, it's actually really seasonal. We do a pumpkin spice, just like Starbucks does, in October, November time, and that sells really, really well. Panna sells very well. I kind of picked these three because they are our best sellers. Whenever we put Oreo in the case, it goes really fast because it has Oreo crumbs on top of it. But yeah, it's and it varies. Actually, it's kind of wild. It varies between Leavenworth and Pybus. So I would say we probably make the most chocolate. But in the summer we sell more sorbetto, and in the winter we sell more gelato. It's just it's kind of a toss up.
How about someone was asking about the sugar content of gelato versus ice cream.
So I can't speak too much to ice cream, but I know that the sugar content of our gelatos actually varies quite a bit, and our gelato cooks have sort of free reign on whether, because when we say we use berries, fresh berries in a lemon or in a sorbetto, we don't know, the sugar contents of those berries necessarily. It's a lot of it's very akin to. If you're cooking, sometimes you add more salt to something because you need to bring out the flavor in it. But when you're making sorbetto, like sometimes you have very tart berries and you need to add more sugar to them to make it reach that balance of sweet to tart, and make sure that it's not going to pucker anybody's lips.
A little bit of pucker is good. I thought it was kind of ironic that we're tasting tonight on one of the biggest snow days of the season, although I was surprised to see that there were, other people in line for gelato too. So is there really a bad time to taste gelato?
I don't think so. I mean, you can always be warm inside. So I taste it every time I come down here because I'm quality controlling it.
Oh, sure.
But I definitely have my favorites. I go towards Oreo a lot because I love Oreos. But I don't know. I really like when we make a new flavor we haven't made in a long time, and I get to try that one.
That's fun. Yeah, we love the Oreo flavor too. We entice our kids to go biking or running down on the trail with us by promising that we'll go a distance and then stop for gelato and then make it back to the car. So we visit you frequently.
Good. In terms of a flavor combination that didn't work well or that we regretted.
Ooh, good question.
That is a good question.
I'd probably regret the ones that I overeat.
Yeah, well, there's always that. I'm thinking a lot of times, I guess from a consumer standpoint, people will get 2 scoops and think, oh, peach looks really good, and then Oreo looks really good, and then they'll decide to get them together, but not think about the fact that they actually will melt a bit and combine. And so I think peach Oreo probably wouldn't be very good. But a lot of times we have recipes that we've been using since we started making gelato, which has been long before I was around. But yeah, we have a recipe book where we have combinations that do work, and a lot of the flavors we have are set by the flavors that we receive.
About customer favorites. Well, this has to be one. It's delicious.
Yeah. As far as the highest sugar content in the gelato, I would have to review the recipes to tell you for sure on that. We do have some that are sugar-free that are made with the sugar substitutes. So those would be the lowest sugar content. I would say the sorbettos, specifically raspberry and probably lemon, all the tart flavors get a lot of sugar in them. And if we want to, we can open up chocolate.
We do want to.
Yes. I'm gonna try with one hand.
Oh, good. You need to. Yeah.
All right. So you should notice, let me make sure. So you get a lot of richness in that. And the difference in our chocolate gelato from our Panna and the rest of them is it's the only one that we do actually use heavy cream in. So we found that it sort of made almost like a chocolate mousse, and it was just so much better when it was just a little richer, because it does have a bunch of Dutch cocoa in it. So we really needed to balance out the bitterness of that with thick cream. It also makes it a little bit. It can be really hard to scoop for our gelato servers when it's cold, when it's really cold, and that's because of the additional butter fat, milk fat that's in the product.
It's delicious. You're right. It is a lot richer. I feel like I couldn't binge eat this like I could the lemon or the Panna. I bet this with the Panna would be so delicious paired together.
Yeah. This with the Panna, the orange, all of our orange flavors. It's definitely combinable with the sorbetto to make it more of a binge eatable gelato.
That may not be what you're going for, but sometimes you just have a day that you need to.
Yeah.
So do you have a culinary background? What brought you to work for Visconti's?
Yeah, I actually moved over to Wenatchee almost 2 years ago. I went to Washington State and got a hospitality management degree and cooked the entire time I was in school there at a restaurant in Pullman. I had cooked before I went to school, and it's just, I thought I was going to be in hotel management, but the kitchen just kept calling. So I don't have a culinary degree, but I've spent 12 years or so working in kitchens and kitchen management and lots of different styles.
This feels like it must be a good fit for your background. And I feel like to balance that I also need to say, go dogs. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
So what brought you to Wenatchee and how is it treating you?
The outdoors brought me here, and the availability of the job. I absolutely love it. My fiance works up in Leavenworth, and she likes it up there. She actually works at Solavita, which is their Italian competitor up there.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, it's beautiful. The sunshine brought me here. The outdoor activities, everything there is to do here, and the beautiful sights and.
Well, I'm glad it brought you here to Wenatchee. I agree. There's a lot of things to love about it.
Yeah.
So Kyle, I'm happily able to report that I think I'm going to have leftovers. What's the shelf life of these containers in our home freezers?
They're not going to go bad. But when you start, just like with ice cream, when you start seeing a little bit of frostiness on them, they just lose quality. So these were made 3 days ago. They'll last 2 weeks with good quality, and after that, it's a matter of opinion. You're not going to get sick from this because it's in the freezer.
Kyle, what I'm hearing you say is that I need to eat this within the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that challenge.
Yep. That's the best. That's the best way to do it. Just eat it as soon as you can, but it will last.
We have a great question in chat about what is thought to be the original or most authentic gelato flavor.
Um, I would say that sweet cream as a gelato. I mean, sorbetto, I imagine, was around before, with all kinds of different fruit flavors because it's much more simple. But when you add the cream, um, it becomes, what we see as dairy and ice cream. And each country developed their own, with Italy and France developing gelato. Um, so I would say that Panna, as it is, the base, if you will, for everything else, would be the original.
Well, I'm glad we got to try that then, so we can be a part of trying some of that authentic original idea. I was glad to see that ice and fire were both. It looked very safely distanced,
Yep.
but busy for today. So that was fun to see. How is Visconti's doing with COVID restrictions, and what can we do as a community to support you?
Absolutely. It's been a long, however many months it's been now, 12 almost. Um, we've gone through ups and downs, but with the current um, sort of guidelines for what we can and can't do, we're actually doing well. It was a tough summer, but we were very well supported down at Fire by everyone on the path, and people did an amazing job coming out and supporting all the businesses down here, really. And I think just coming out, and I mean, this is a great way to support us. Making sure that you think about all the restaurants in the community, not just ours, but go out to eat as much as you possibly can. If you don't feel comfortable with it, order takeout. There's a lot of businesses in the valley that need help.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to invite people to put their final questions for Kyle in the chat. And while we're chatting, I want to invite you to the museum as well. We're open by appointment, and our featured exhibit celebrating the centennial of women's suffrage and the 90th anniversary show of the Women Painters of Washington is only open for another week. It's open until February 6th. So be sure to make an appointment online at WenatcheeValleyMuseum.org to visit us. You can learn a little bit about our local history, take in the gorgeous art from the Women Painters of Washington, and if you splurge on a painting you have your eye on, 30% of the proceeds go to the museum. So I'm just going to take a look here at chat and see if there's any other questions before I close. I also want to invite people to our next Made in Wenatchee if you're enjoying this tasting series. Our next event will be on Valentine's Day, February 14th at 5 p.m. We're going to feature Jones of Washington and Cheesemongers, some of Kyle's partners there at Pybus. We'll do a wine and cheese tasting, and we'll have reservations live on the museum's website soon. So I'm not seeing any other questions, Kyle, before I close. Is there anything that I've forgotten to ask you or that you'd like to add?
There is one question that I'm seeing. The oddest flavor. What is the oddest flavor you've ever made? Basil flavored. And that actually brings a really interesting thing is we actually did a basil syrup on the lemon sorbetto one time, and it was amazing. So if you've ever had like a fresh basil lemonade, just kind of think like that, but dessert style. So it's funny that triggered that, but actually that wouldn't have been the weirdest thing. And it's tough to introduce a lot of things to the gelato because it does cook so hot. So we wouldn't have been able to mix the basil in because it would have just totally cooked out, and turned kind of nasty. Wouldn't kept that green. It wouldn't have been good.
It's interesting that you said basil. We tasted basil, I think it was basil olive oil when we tasted with D'Olivio. And we also tasted basil when we tasted chocolates. And I never would have thought those would infuse so well, but they were delicious. So I can imagine that was just as good. We have another question in chat, Kyle, about toppings. So I think this one's interesting because my kids would never pass up the opportunity to put whipped cream or sprinkles on something. This question is, would an Italian turn up their nose if you add toppings to your gelato?
I think potentially the way that we do it here, that it's possible. In terms of like our topping bar, like we have the M&Ms and we have all that, but it is very traditional to have, say you have a strawberry sorbetto and then have it topped with frozen strawberries. So the idea of a topping, I would say no, but having Oreo crumbs and sort of like a what are they called? Like a frozen yogurt place, like we have
Mhm.
that kind of toppings. I don't think they would like that.
I can see that. We have another question in chat about the sugar substitutes, asking if they're as good as what we tasted tonight.
I would say no. I mean, to be completely fair, if it's something that you're trying to get away from eating sugar, then they're good, but they're just not the same. Just like when you're drinking coffee or making tea, or they're good if that's something you're doing from a diet standpoint, but it's not quite the same. I do like the sugar-free chocolate. I really like dark chocolate, and it tastes even more dark than this chocolate. So there are some of them that are very good, but I would say that you get that sort of I call it chemically flavor, but just anytime you use Splenda, because that's essentially what it is, Splenda sweetener, it just doesn't taste natural to me.
You get it as close as you possibly can, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good question. Good. Well, I'm not seeing anything else in chat. Kyle, I want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And I want to thank all of our participants. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this virtual tasting and for supporting the museum through your ticket sales. From all of us here at the museum, we thank you and we can't wait to be together again in person soon.